In this episode, we're going to compare natural methods for enhancing your plant and vegetable growth, one of which might seem a little bit strange, well, very strange, called electroculture. It's the latest thing in horticultural circles, and the JADAM traditional Korean natural farming methods. So I'll give you a quick overview of what electroculture is, and I'm not an expert in this. I'm doing a 7-week course in it and I'm on week 6. So I'm very lucky to be learning from the world's leading expert on electroculture, Yannick van Doorn. And I'm a little bit behind with the coursework. I haven't done all of the required reading. So I'll just give you the overview as I understand it at this moment in time. It's basically utilising the Earth's natural energies. So there's electricity in the atmosphere and of course the Earth's magnetic field. Now if you're already rolling your eyes thinking that sounds a bit woo-woo, then this book has over 200 scientific experiments that show the effects of geomagnetic on terrestrial life, both in plants, animals, fungi, you name it. So there's a lot of study been done. So in many respects, electroculture is very much like using the natural farming methods of Korean natural farming, JADAM, all the things you've seen on channels like The Garden Like a Viking on YouTube. What you're doing is you're enhancing the microbial activity in the soil and they then feed the plants. Which is of vital importance because plants are unable to extract the nutrients from the soil by themselves. And anything that helps increase the microbial activity in the soil is going to help the plants. And what's wonderful about electroculture is, unlike using artificial fertilisers, the plants don't just get big for the sake of it. They are actually much more nutrient dense. Now, electroculture has been around since the mid-1700s, and it was practiced a lot in the 1800s and the early 1900s. But after World War II, it pretty much got written out of the dictionaries, the history books. It all but vanished because a lot of emphasis was put on artificial chemical fertilisers. So a lot of YouTubers out there with much larger channels than mine are testing what they think is electroculture. And yes, it might work, they might get results, but if they haven't understood the finer details, which Yannick teaches, and a lot of these people with the quick 5-minute video or wrap a coil around a stick videos that you've probably seen, they haven't had the decades of experience, they haven't done all of the research and haven't had tried and tested results. So if you're trying electroculture, I really encourage you to take a look at Yannick's videos. And yes, they're not 5 minutes long. He really goes into the details of explaining it, but then you're going to understand what you are doing. And that is so much better than just plonking a stick in the ground and going, ta-da, I'm doing electroculture, because chances are it may not work. You don't know what the subtle energies of the direction you've put that coil in. Some plants might need the clockwise direction when they're putting all their energy into their leaves and flowers, but then when it comes to, say, a potato, for example, it might need the energy to go anti-clockwise at a time when it's putting all of its energy into the potato. And you're not going to know when that is. So if you've got all this energy going up, you might be working against what the plant needs. And also, if anyone that's been to Sedona and has seen all of the twisted way the trees grow, you don't know what the underground energies are that you're dealing with. So you might be doing the opposite to what the plant needs, and then obviously it's not going to work. So with Yannick's methods, they're tried and tested. He's got all of the research and all of the data. So do take a look at the videos. I've got a whole page of them on my website. And he's very generous with his time and his knowledge. So yeah, it's not going to be a 5-minute watch. If you're really interested in doing this, and I think it's valuable that we all experiment with it, do it properly. Do the real research stuff that definitely works rather than just relying on the 5-minute video that you might have seen on TikTok or something. So when Yannick uses a spiral, it's not next to the plant, it's in the top of the antenna. And it is critical to get the antenna higher because of the umbrella effect of the energy than of the plant that it's next to. It's very different to probably what you've seen doing the rounds on TikTok. So I will show you the experiments I've set up in the allotment. Okay, here we are at the allotment, and I'm really hoping the electroculture and the natural farming techniques work, because I've had quite a disastrous start to the season. My seedlings have not done at all well. I didn't get my seeds set up right. and that has caused, well, basically very sickly looking seedlings, and they don't normally recover that well. But anyway, so things are not great, but to the right, this is the control group, very poor seedlings. The middle one, just in front of all of the soft fruit, that one is going to be the JADAM natural farming methods, and then everything on the left side is different electroculture experiments. Now, it's important when you're doing this to keep them separate, because if you're using antennas like this one, it will go for sort of 2 or 3 meters. So it could, actually maybe I should move that antenna to the next one. It could inadvertently affect your control group. So in these two borders, we've got 3 of the magnetic wires buried approximately 40 centimetres, 30 to 40 centimetres down, basically just below the depth of my spade. Now, the alignment of this particular process is critical. It needs to run on the north-south axis, but to learn more about this, I suggest you watch Yannick's first video lecture, and you can either see it on YouTube or you can look on my website for it. And if you're wondering what I'm doing here, it's coating the ferrite magnets in beeswax, but I'll let Yannick explain the reasons as to why. But this top one has the antenna as well. There is going to be, half of it's going to have paramagnetic basalt just under the bark on this side. This one has already, because I remembered this on this one, to put the paramagnetic basalt on that section. So that should enhance things. So all 4 of the top ones have got the same vegetables in. So if we walk you through, we've got some beans, courgette's been eaten, so I'm going to have to replace that. Some very sickly looking sweet corn, very sickly looking tomatoes. I think everything does need a bit of a water. So yeah, if I manage to get good vegetables out of this, it will be a small miracle. Some sunflowers, and then we're going to have some grains like quinoa and amaranth growing, and as well as my brassicas in the space. This one I'm going to build, I haven't done it yet, 2 of the round towers in this one. The paramagnetic round towers you can learn all about in Yannick's lecture 4, and they are absolutely fascinating. Amazing results have been achieved with these in farm fields, so I'm looking forward to experimenting with those. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a good experiment because the slugs ate the vegetables, so it's not going to have the same things in it that the other ones did. So it's a bit of a muck-up, but I'll get that right next year. Good job, it's a 3-year experiment. Why is it a 3-year experiment? Well, because electroculture, it takes about 3 to 5 years for it to really build up the microbial action in the soil. After about 3 to 5 years, it levels off. So you should get improvements every single year, but once you've reached its peak, that's kind of it. And the same with probably JADAM as well. So that's why I'm doing it over 3 years. Also, this side to the right, it's had a lot of ant activity, and I don't know how that's going to affect whether they're going to chomp through the roots or not. So this year could be a little bit on the iffy side. I don't really want to kill them if they're not doing any damage, as irritating as it is having ants everywhere. As long as they're not doing any damage, I don't mind. But you know, I've had chats with them and said, you know, could you mind moving whilst sprinkling their little hive or whatever it is that ants have with peppermint oil, going, here's something that you won't like. So hopefully that will encourage them to disappear. We shall see. So this is the JADAM side. Now, I say that, I haven't actually done anything much with it other than bury fish in the soil, raw fish, egg yolks and coffee grounds. So I'm very behind. All my microbial solutions did not work. I didn't get the temperature right. So, but I will be using all of the teas and stuff. Again, that's why this is a 3-year experiment, because I'm a bit behind this year. So I need to get my act together to be better, but at least we have 4 beds control group. There's nothing, well, let's have a look. How are, they wouldn't have reached the fish because they've only been in a week. And they were all more or less the same size. Yeah, maybe they have, because they're slightly bigger than those. Impossible to tell at this stage because it really is too soon. So that's where I'm at now. Not a good start at all. So yes, it will take a small miracle to turn this around, but we'll see what happens. Stuff just isn't growing like it normally does. I'm not quite sure whether it's not been warm enough, sunny enough. It's really odd. And it may actually be the water, because I had some seedlings outside and they just sat there. They germinated and they did absolutely nothing. One night we had rain and suddenly the next day, boom, they were off to the races. So yeah, they're not liking what's coming out the hose, clearly. And maybe there was more energy in the atmosphere with the rain. I don't know, but we haven't had any rain for a while. So that could be impacting it as much as the cold nights and the very odd weather patterns. So this is the ridiculously oversized vegetable planter that I built in the last episode. And thankfully the potatoes, as I'd hoped, have escaped from the bottom and are in the full sun now. So they're doing well. There is some electroculture experiments. Now, it's not what you'd think. They're two different varieties. That's why they're two different sizes. The experiment is in the middle, and this is where I made the coil round the stick before I had done the proper training. So I too am testing the coil round the stick, except with mine I have actually put an antenna on the top. So that's a mixture of Yannick's methods and the ones that you're seeing on TikTok. Now I'm also doing another one of electroculture using Lukovsky coils, and again this is something that Yannick covers, I think, in lecture 5. So they're fairly easy to make if you have a drill, some copper wire and a clamp. And all you do is feed the copper wire into the head of the drill, attach the other end to the clamp, and then hold on for dear life. I don't recommend you use this length though. I thought I'd do one long piece and then cut it into bits, which then there'd be less wastage. I did do that and it was okay, but it's a bit harder over that length. So for shorter pieces, well, shorter than this is what I'd advise. So I've also tested these on some fruit trees that got absolutely slaughtered by slugs. It was just unbelievable. Every branch was dripping in slugs. It was disgusting. Thankfully, I used Garden Like a Viking slug solution, which is a little bit gruesome. It uses garlic and caustic soda all blitzed up with some Castile soap, and you spray it on at night and it liquefies them. And I felt quite bad the first night, but then when I went out the second night, the third night and the fourth night, and there was just, well, it was the slugs have orgies. I mean, no wonder there's so many in the garden. It was quite mind-blowing, but the amount of stuff they have eaten, I've gotten over my guilt of killing them all. Well, maybe not all of them, they're still going, but they were just everywhere, just eating everything. So they had to go. But my poor trees, and then of course the aphids and the ants move in because of all the slug damage, so they are been quite weakened. So I'm going to get my JADAM fertilizer feeds, foliar feeds onto them, and also they got the Lukovsky coils. So that combination with a bit of luck should revive them. My sweet potatoes, I mean, look, everything's so tiny. Come on, grow. So hopefully these will get moving. And you can see the slugs were just mowing through my poppy seeds. And each evening I'd get to them just before they got to the main lot. But that whole area should be covered like that. So yes, goodbye slugs. Hopefully now, hello food. So I have at least started the planting plan for my garden. I'm getting so much stick being a garden designer who hasn't finished designing her own garden, I can't tell you. But I am getting there. It's been building all of these electroculture structures that's my excuse anyway. And I will be, now I've more or less finished. I've got a pyramid to build and then the 2 round towers. Then I'll be doing my planting plan. So hopefully in the next episode, I'll be able to share that with you. So as enthusiastic as I am about electroculture, I'm not wedded to it. If it doesn't yield the results that I'm looking for, then I'll be the first to admit that and move on to something else. What I'm looking for is to move into creating beautiful food projects. I don't know if you've seen The Biggest Little Farm. That movie was so inspiring to not only have something that's completely organic, self-sufficient, regenerative, so the soil gets better every single year, but something that looks beautiful as well. So I want to be able to combine my design skills in with what I'm learning now. I want to help people design and build beautiful food producing spaces for their gardens, small holdings or farms. But I'm not wedded to any of the methods. The reason I'm so drawn to electroculture is because it's going to be much easier to do it on a bigger scale. Being able to get large areas covered with something as simple as a round tower, for example, is going to be so much easier to help farmers move away from artificial fertilisers and chemicals than mixing lots of microbial solutions that, as I've experienced myself, if you don't get things spot on, they fail. And that puts you behind with your growing season. So that's my main motivation for this. And if you want to follow along with the JADAM solutions that I'm going to be making, I've created a page on my website with the easy to follow Garden Like a Viking video tutorials. So I hope this episode has piqued your interest about electroculture and that you'll give it a go and use some of Yannick's methods, not just the copper wire around a stick that you will have seen. The jury's still out on to whether that's actually going to do anything. So I will keep you posted through the growing season and all the way through my 3-year experiment.